morning, guys. So I am super excited to announce that I am doing a quick little smidge interview today with an author that I absolutely love. Her name is Kat T. Mason, and she recently released her new book, hashtag bitch. Oops. But that is the title, which is the second book to her hashtag jerk series. So she had brought out Jerk 5 years ago. This one is the second in that series, and I was a little bit surprised. I didn't know she was writing this book, but I absolutely loved the first book, so I jumped on that fan wagon immediately. And it's only recently become live, so I jumped on that straight away and I messaged her and just wanted to see if she wanted to pop on by just quickly for a quick little chat. She's a fellow Australian author, and we are about to go into an interview just about this release, and a massive congratulations to her. I love the cover. I love this book. I've read it and I will be uploading my review shortly. But I just really want us to take this time to be with Kat, to ask her questions about the book, and to really get to know her a little bit more. So let's head on in. Let's say hello to Kat. So first of all, I want to talk about your release, bitch. I read it in a day and I absolutely loved it. It wasn't exactly what I was expecting, but that's why I loved it so much more. I think I've already told you, like, I found it very relatable for myself personally. I've never had, I hope this doesn't spoil anything for anyone, but I've never had a child. Well, not about me, but about the book. I've never had a child. I've never had a miscarriage. So these are obviously topics that you cover in the book, and then obviously Presley's slow breakdown about not having everything organized and not having all her shit together and how she feels like her standards should be. So I felt that it was very relevant to a lot of women, even if you did have a child or if you didn't. And it just made me realize too how much more impactful it is if you had a kid, which is why I'm not having any kids right now, because that looks crazy out. But I absolutely loved it. So thank you. And obviously I love Hayden and Presley. They're definitely a love-hate couple, but I absolutely love the games in it. So thank you for sharing that book with me. And I have a couple of questions about it. So congratulations.
Thank you.
Alrighty. So what made you decide to write Bitch? I mean, it was 5 years ago that you first released Jerk, and it's one of your best sellers because it's an amazing book. So did you always know that you wanted to bring book 2 out at a later date? And will there be a book 3?
If there's a happy ending, the book stays as is. And it is usually only after the response, usually after a year, seeing how sales go, seeing how people react to it, that I end up writing second books. And that's why I always write the first, actually, no, I take it back. Apart from a series, I always write the first with that happy ending. Jerk is one of those books that every so often, probably about once a year, I always say to my readers, what do you want to see more of? It ranges, but majority always said this couple. And so what I had tried to have done in the last couple of years, or I did, is I would write this couple in as side characters into the other books. And so, you know, they would be the best friend of, for example, Mr. Rebound, he was the best friend, Hayden's the best friend, so you get to see what's going on, but you never know too much of their story. They're just hanging around. And so this was the top couple to make a return, and I always wanted to do Bitch because it was the opposite to Jerk, but I never knew how to do the story. And so I wanted to stay away from doing what everyone assumes it's about, that he's looking at another girl, that everyone is going to assume that, or she's looking at another guy or something like that. And that's quite common with books where the couple's already together. So yeah, I wanted to do this, and the story kind of fell into place. So it made sense to do it. And I'm really happy now that I've just done it.
I did like actually that you were, again, I hope I'm not making too many spoilers, but it was a third person involved in the story, and I like that you're ideally blindsided to that, and it wasn't a stereotypical she's looking at another man or he's looking at another woman, like you said. Like, they very much love each other so much, and it was more so the breakdown of communication in their marriage, which I think is a very relevant topic for a lot of people. And I really enjoyed reading his view and then her view, because you could see how much they cared for each other and where it was going wrong for them, and it stemmed down to the communication as well. So I think that's interesting when this third person comes into it, how they could so easily sort of slide in and become an issue between the marriage as well. So I really liked that. Thank you.
Yeah, I won't give it away. I won't say anything more about that third person.
No, I was like, I'm trying to word this very delicately so that I don't give it away.
Yeah.
Also,
Yeah.
I really love too the detail that you put in your environments in the books as well. So when you were talking about, when they go to New York and when they're living in California, and I've personally been to those places, I know you have as well, and you can tell with the detail, it sort of felt like I was being transported back to Times Square in that moment. So I really enjoyed the detail of it, because I love those places. So thank you for being really...
I think California, I'd been there a ton of times, and in some ways it's a little bit like Sydney in some ways, but definitely more, it's kind of like, it's chaotic, but it's more open, if that makes sense. And so, you get this sense of feeling at peace, but then kind of like, when you're in your house and there's beautiful sunshine and it's always kind of warm, and that smog, and you always wake up in the morning, what's a smog? And then like it all clears, and it's very, in my opinion, when like specifically LA, when I've been there, you can really see the way that people live very different. You can see the ones who drive around in their Rolls Royces and their Porsches, and the ones who don't. It's very, and then as for New York, I actually had researched, I know how I felt about it, but I sometimes feel like how I feel about it is just how I feel about it. And so I actually researched some travel blogs and read travel blogs of people who went to New York, but specifically, how did it make you feel when you went there? And so what I found is actually what people were writing, and these people took time to really be in depth of their thought and how it made you feel and the way it made you think about your life and so forth. I was like, wow, that's exactly how I felt. It's this sense of, you land there, it's so chaotic, yet it's quiet, if that makes sense. You rethink your life. It's just everything. And that's how I felt as stepping in, and then seeing others step in. And that's how Presley felt when she first stepped in many, many, many years ago. And then she lost that of herself. And that's the whole point really in this book, is that she's lost kind of herself. So stepping back in the end, and with this open eyes, which is almost shut down for years, because it was all about work, it was all about her son, it was all about her marriage. She hasn't opened her eyes and looked around. And so because if she does that, she loses control of this plan that she has. So for her to open her eyes at the end and see things, and by opening her eyes, she kind of started to feel things. Very roughly, I'm the same, and a lot of other people are the same. So that was fun. That was fun to do. It was really actually fun to do.
That's amazing. And I'm smiling the whole time, because I'm like, that's how New York made me feel. I feel like I've had a lot of sort of, every time I've gone there, I'm like, what am I doing with my life? You just sort of immediately sort of, I don't know, just start thinking about everything. And you're right, because there are so many people constantly. It really is just a hustle and bustle. And I love the quote that you put in there saying that it's the cement jungle. And I was like, it really is. That is how New York feels to me. So you really embedded it well, I think.
Thank you.
One thing I absolutely love about your books, and I think a lot of readers will agree with me, is that you definitely have tongue-in-cheek. You are like that as a person, naturally. And I love reading it, because I know you also, I'm sort of like, yeah, that's a brilliant line. And I love the same thing that comes out of your books, because obviously it develops into your characters as well. And the banter between Presley and Haden, I don't think I've really read anywhere before, because you're right, they are rather savage on each other. They just tear each other to bits, but it's hot for them, like it's sexy and they love it.
Yeah.
So I'm curious as to what your favorite thing is about Presley and Haden's relationship.
I think what I love about is that they equally give it back to each other. And when they're not in a difficult place like they were in the middle to the end of this book, Um, they really give it back, but at the end of the day, it's a kiss and make up, and she's so used to him being that way that later on, without giving too much away, when he kind of wasn't that way and when he tried to sympathize with her, she's getting angry because she doesn't want that. She wants the normal Haden who doesn't care, and he's kind of selfish, but I guess, you can see when you see both sides of this couple is that, he does a lot of things to rile her up, on purpose. And she feeds into it every single time. But he also gets the best of the X-rated version, because that's what kind of, in their marriage, her being heated gets taken out in a certain other way. And so that's ultimately his aim, right? He knows how to poke, and she reacts every single time, and he gets what he wants. And obviously at the start of the book, you see that he hasn't been getting what he wants because life is just kind of in the way, and that's what makes him a jerk. And I know that there's a lot of people who said to me, oh my God, that his character at the beginning of that typical husband, who feels a little bit neglected, is so very common. And I'm like, yes, it is. It is. So I'm sure there's a lot of women who could relate with wanting to watch TV over jumping straight to the bedroom straight away. So especially over these addictive TV shows, The Bachelor or Maths or anything like that. So that was.
When you were talking about The Bachelor in the book, I was like, this is very specific. I know that you watched The Bachelor.
Funnily enough, I don't watch The Bachelor, actually. Funnily enough, I don't watch it. And I did watch Maths, I think last season, not now. The reason why I chose The Bachelor, though, is because I know that it's quite a popular program in the US, more so, I think, than here. And when that was on in the US, my feed was kind of full of it. The women were just, oh, he should have chose this. And if I go to the entertainment websites, and this is a current show, it's really everything is about that. Oh, he should have chose this and that. So I decided to kind of go with something that I knew was kind of common, not necessarily what I love. The reality shows I love are, they're really weird shows. They usually involve, I don't know,
go on,
like large families and wedding dresses being I don't know, just stuff that's on the other channels.
So how long did it take you to write Bitch? Obviously it's a very interesting time as well. Everything's fast moving. That was prior to you releasing this. So everything would have just been amongst your normal daily routine and life before this all started implementing with the coronavirus. So what is your routine? How long did it take you to write, and was there anything different you had to do with your writing style for it?
So I was starting this in around October. I think I must have written, actually I started this maybe 6 months ago. I wrote like 1 or 2 chapters, just to get the feel of Haden again and Presley. So then I paused it when I got the opportunity to write for The Cocky World. So The Cocky World became a priority because I really wanted to get released in the first bunch. It meant that we had a deadline, end of January. So pretty much spent, I think, 6 weeks, maybe 5. I pushed myself really hard on Arrogant Aussie, which is full-length novel. I think it was around 80,000 words. I pushed and pushed and pushed and pushed. And the second I finished that, I knew myself too well, that I was in this constant writing pattern that I didn't want to stop. So immediately after finishing that, and that literally went to my editor, I opened this document again. I went like, let's do this. This is not a huge book, so I can get this out of the way. So I pretty much did that back to back. It was fantastic. It was my intention to go back to back again with something else now, prior to my time being consumed with corona-related everything and cancelling and rescheduling events and all that. But it is my intention to now go into the next one. I just found that the characters, all my books essentially have common factors, and that is what you said, the banter and so forth. So going to another story that had this couple that were like head to head was easy. Writing this couple was even easier because I'd been there, done that, and it was easier to differentiate their voices. So being that it's a dual point of view, it was very easy to be like, I'm Haden, I'm Presley. So, you know, so the writing process, it was easier. The easier part about this is everything of where they live, where they work, all that kind of stuff didn't really have to be overly described because I'd done this already in the previous book. This one was more about capturing the right emotions, and in this book I had to capture these highs and lows and then high again. And so and giving enough. I don't want the story, without giving the spoiler at the end, to just drag it on. I know you said about like a book 3. It would be too, I don't know. It'd be nice to do some bonus chapters, give the readers something extra through newsletters and website and that. I don't think they warrant a 3rd book. And unlike my Rumi War series is an example that went in 3, they went through the stage of them hooking up to the planning of the wedding, which is a big milestone, and then the babies. And so those are the 3 big things, and I captured that separately, and that was great. But for these 2, I feel like they were very different. So I don't think I would continue on. But yeah, look, the writing process in this was actually, let's say, it was very therapeutic as well. I enjoyed writing it. This to me was like writing a Dear Diary in a way. There's so many things I'd gone through in that book. And it was a story I felt confident in telling a year and a half later. But if you asked me a year and a half ago to write this exact story in this book, I would have told you, no, I can't do that. So that's why I love it. I know I say that about all books, but it's why I really, really do love it. I do love this story.
You know, I was wondering, and I didn't want to ask or pry the question, but I'm just going to say it anyway after that. I wondered how much of it was relatable for yourself, because there was so much raw emotion in it as well. And I know that because you were such a busy woman, like I look at you, I've known you for 5-6 years now, and I've always seen you as Wonder Woman, and I just think, how does she keep it all together? And like, how does she, you know, have a husband, have 4 little kids that you absolutely love and adore, because there's so many photos coming on, you know, Facebook, which is amazing. Yeah. And you organize all of these signings, and I know that you had a HR job as well, which you decided to resign years ago, which is fabulous. And you're constantly going, and you inspire me so much with that. So a part of me wondered, because obviously you're a very organized person as well. I don't think that you're to the extent of color coding stuff.
Maybe. No, definitely not.
But it was really interesting, because I did feel, and I hope this isn't taken the wrong way in any way, but I feel a little bit of you come through that book as well. So it was really nice, I guess. It was really kind of personal a little.
Yeah, I think that in all complete transparency, it's taken me a lot of therapy over the last year or so to get to a point where using those tough times in your life for lessons and moving forward, and what you learn. And so the hardest thing with anything that you go through in life, doesn't matter whether it's death or sickness or whatever, is not really understanding why that happened. And you don't know why it happens. You just place blame everywhere. And it's only when you step away from it and you go through the process that you can understand why things kind of happen. And so that for me, when I was writing this book, I actually had said to my husband, I'm going to write this book. How do you feel about it? And you know, he's a typical guy. What are you talking about? Like, yeah, it's all good. And I'm like, no. I'm going to specifically write about this. And, you know, and he was fine, because he understands and he's fine. And one of the things for me personally, and this will do a bit of a spoiler. So spoiler alert, this is where you need something to flash on the video. Spoiler alert. Spoiler alert. You've been given the 10-second warning. Don't watch from now on. Spoiler. Is that husband and I were talking about this last night, and I was saying that of the reviews that I'm getting, there's a lot of mothers obviously reading this book that are relating to, wow, okay, like, oh, that was me or whatever. And in this book, it, you know, Presley always had control of her life before kind of Haden stepped in. And she wants to control the future, and we all know that's not possible. And so, you know, having a child that she didn't want at this specific time has thrown all plans in the works. And what her character refused to do because she didn't think that she needed to was grieve. And it was one of the things that, having been in that same position, I also did not grieve. I grieved in blame a lot like Presley, but I also went into denial for such a long time. Oh, but you have your HR job, but you're an author, but you've got to travel here and there. And so everywhere I went had to be this smile and everything's okay. We don't talk about anything. And the unfortunate side to that is exactly like Presley, I had my meltdown, and it's very ugly. And it's a very ugly meltdown when the realization of, well, all along I should have just felt what I felt. But on the plus side, you come out stronger on the other end. And I remember specifically, you were there at the New York signing. You were there.
I was.
You were there.
Yeah, I cut off my feet from wearing heels all day in New York, and I was.
Yeah. So you would have seen my opening speech, and I actually cried. And I have never cried at an opening speech for, and it still gets me teary, of an author event. I'd never cried. I'm just like, hey guys, thanks for coming. Let's have a photo, blah. And I actually cried on that one. I couldn't, like hold it in. And we had literally, that was a time when we had gone through it. And I was like, smile, 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 smiles to the public. No one needs to know. Looking back at that now, a year or so later, you know, I'm just like, wow, I just wish that I had felt, and when people told me, feel it, feel it, feel it, I'm like, no, don't need to feel it. We're all good. Let's move forward. And that's exactly what I guess that Presley went through in this book, and what people don't realize, it is something that can tear your marriage apart, because you've got this person beside you who genuinely is like, hey, it's going to be okay. Let's hug it out. And you're like, no, we don't need to hug it out. We're fine. And you're just like, oh, but we're not. So, you know, it's you know, marriages, like anything, or relationships, not just marriages, relationships in general can fall apart every which way. And people sometimes assume that marriages fall apart because of a third person, and that's not always the case. There is the thing of people assume that children can bring you together and family can bring you together, but sometimes it actually is what tears you apart. So I don't know how we got all the way to this, but yeah, that is for me anyway, it was quite therapeutic to write this book, and I hope that there's a lot of people that can relate, especially if they've gone through that.
I do think, like, I absolutely love your transparency, because all of those things that you just discussed are so relatable, and I actually think that this book is, you know, it's great for the banter and the romance and having Haden Presley in, but you did drive a very specific message into it. And I think that was very powerful, because even the subjects of, you know, losing children and such. So I know two different circumstances, one being one of my aunts and my mother's, who had very different experiences. And it was really interesting for me as a reader. Obviously, I thought I understood what they were going through, and I was trying to be that pillar for them. But reading this gave me more in depth as to how they actually felt during the process, because it was so raw and it was so real what Presley was going through. And a lot of the things that she was doing were things that those members of my family were doing. And we're very much, I don't know if it's Australian straight, but we're like, everything's fine, it's fine, keep going, keep going.
Yeah.
And in my personal life the last year, I found I kind of took a step back, because, like I said, you inspired me so much. Obviously, I'm a couple of years younger, so I'm just like, yes, Kat is phenomenal. And I realized and I'm happy that I've sort of realized it early on, because I had an intense job as well, and I was doing my books and stuff, and everyone's like, yeah, but you've got everything together. And I was doing the same thing. I was like, smile, it's fine. They don't need to know your problems. They don't care about your problems. And so this last year, I actually realized it's important to take time for yourself and feel whatever you're going through at the time. So I think that this book is really powerful, and even when you're talking about it, you can just hear everything that you've put into this. So I'm really glad that you found it therapeutic for yourself as well, because I do think that this book will help a lot of people. So I want to thank you on their behalf if they can't do it personally, but I think a lot of people will take heaps from it. So, and thanks husband for his consent as well. Thanks, hubby. Obviously, it's a difficult time at the moment. It's a very interesting time to have a release because a lot of people are in isolation or lockdown with the current coronavirus and how the world's changing around that. But you were daring enough to continue to go with the release for that. So I'm curious as to one, how it went, and are you happy with the feedback and the support that you've been getting from it and everything else that comes in a release? Congratulations is the main thing.
Oh, thank you. I mean, it's still fresh because the US only went live a couple of hours ago, so it's just really fresh. The reviews so far, you know, they are my trusty readers. They've read pretty much all my work, but you know, the common thing that I'm seeing in the reviews so far is how they got Presley and Haden what they wanted, and they couldn't have thought of a better way to kind of revisit this couple, because I made the blurb very generic. I made it so that, you know, marriage is supposed to be bliss, right? That was it. You don't know what it is. And unlike other blurbs where I could go in a little bit to, I didn't want people to go in thinking, oh, it's about another guy, it's about another girl, it's about this, it's about that. I want you to go in and not really see where this is going and to feel it. And so with the reviews, that's what I'm getting from the reviews, that they went in not really knowing and jumping to conclusions of, oh, it's going to be about this. So they were kind of surprised when it wasn't, and they were just like, oh, wow, like I didn't see that coming. I felt every emotion. I was angry. I was happy. I was so sad. I was everything. And I think that with a lot of books, Jerk is probably the one that a lot of people absolutely hate. They hate him. You know, and they probably can hate him in Bitch as well. But I think that, you know, he does what he does because, and you get a glimpse of this in Bitch, which you don't in Jerk. He's done what he's always done from the beginning because he was infatuated with her. And even back to the days before when he was prodding her in the office and making her life hell, it's exactly like the schoolyard. He had the crush on her and he wanted to do it. So everything he does is out of love. And it's, when you're in his head, I guess you can see how crazy in love he is, but his way of showing his love towards her is by acting like the jerk. So I think people generally they've related to this and they've loved it so far. Of the reviews I've read, of course, there could be the 1 stars. It's not a release without a 1 star. Come on. And so, yeah, and I mean, it's hard. Look, I don't know, you know, every time there's a release, I'm floored by, even if I don't see that translate into a sale necessarily, I'm floored by the shares, I'm floored by the comments, I'm floored by the authors who share the work, who post in their groups, allow me to post in groups, offer their newsletters. It makes me want to do more because I find that I tend to miss a lot of stuff, and unless you ask me specifically, could you share, I miss a lot of stuff. And so it makes me want to do more and share more because I'm like, I'm so sorry you're sharing my release and I didn't share yours. But it's just, it's always a reminder to me when I have a release, no matter how well it does or doesn't do, of how far I've gotten. Because, you know, 6 years ago when I hit release on my first book, I got 3 shares. And so I think, I can't remember actually, you know, so to have so many people share and download and do everything is just, it always makes me feel warm and fuzzy inside. But what I had also learned recently when I did the Yarra Valley conference, and we had a couple of guest talkers do some videos, and there was one specific author, actually it was 2, it was Willow Winters and it was Alessandra Torre, who basically said it's not about the launch. Now, as an author, I've been programmed for such a long time to think it is about the launch. Like, that's it. That's your chance. That's it. One go. That's all you get. And it's only over the last year that I've realized, as an example, Jerk got a relaunch last year and took off again, as did many of my other books. So it's weird. I think the expectation's different this time. It's a book too. It's not a brand new book. People really have to read Jerk to kind of, truly feel this. So I'm relying on people who have read the book. But either way, I absolutely love it. I gave it my 150%, which I can genuinely say that. I absolutely love the cover. And this couple makes me effing happy. That's all I can say.
I love that. And when you do the covers side by side, they're so beautiful together as well. They're just like match made in heaven. I love it. And when you were talking about before as well, with everyone sharing your release, and I think it's absolutely true. It's not about the launch, especially when you've been in it for a couple of years. It's not about the launch. It's about the overwhelming feeling when everyone's showing how much they love and support your work and what you're doing. And I think it's just a really surreal moment that you have when everyone hops on social media or they're calling you or messaging you or whatever, and they're focusing on your achievement. So I congratulate you on your release massively. And I know everyone else is. I'm seeing your books everywhere on Facebook and Instagram and everything. So
thank you.
Excited about this. And do you have anything else to add? I think you have a sale on the moment for Jerk.
So depending when this video goes live, Jerk is free today. In the US only. It's been free for the past 5 days. So if you didn't see that online, I would strongly suggest that you visit my website, www.kattmason, just Katt Mason.com, because my newsletters will show you when I have freebies, tell you when I got freebies. And so, yeah, look, nothing to share besides all my books are on KU. So you can definitely grab them there. Join my readers group if you like pina coladas. You don't need to like pina coladas to join the group. That's the title of the group.
I love it. You're often on there live as well, which is really fun. You really interact with your readers as well.
Oh, look, I haven't been live for a while. That video the other night was interesting. That was a lot of gin. That was 3 glasses. So yeah, look, 3 glasses of gin during isolation is, it's like drinking 10 glasses normally. I don't know, but it's always fun to get on live. I have a really amazing readers group, and these are the same readers that I tend to meet in book signings across the world. So it's almost like long lost friends. I just got to get better with faces and names though, because it's really hard when there's like hundreds. But it's always great to kind of catch up online, and sometimes you talk to people every day or every week, but you see them once every 2 years. So it's just kind of great to just be in there. But if you, like I said, it's on KU, and you might see my images everywhere. So for anyone that does watch this and downloads, thank you, and I hope you enjoy it. Some good reads as well if you want to leave a review.
Thank you so much, Kat, for joining me on this interview. A massive congratulations again, and thank you so much for being here.
Thank you so much.
Exciting. All right, well, check it out, guys. Links are in below. I'll put in Kat's website. I will also put in, obviously, links to her Amazon and anything and everything else I can find about this amazingly beautiful woman. So please follow her. She's a phenomenal author and one that I have loved for many of years. So stay on. Hopefully soon I'll have her on another interview, which I'm now going to convince her after the video to sign up to. So we'll talk to you guys, and thank you so much. Bye.